I am sick of this argument about wealth caps. I really am. This is going to be really boring and analytical, but the law school equivalent of my thesis was on this, so I know it quite well. But moreover, this is going to get flamed ad nauseum on the Reddit post because of how that website leans politically. But fuck it. I'm a flaming moderate, and I'll say the effective argument and solution. Long live pragmatism. Wealth gaps are not hurting Project Diablo 2. They are a natural cycle that is predictable and controllable outside of video game world. How many of you have heard about a Gini coefficient before? It's a relative measure of inequality over a given area. So you can calculate a Gini coefficient for a street or a city block, a whole city, or even an entire country. It's simply how much inequality exists over a particular resource over a given area. Its main use is in social sciences, as the Gini coefficients for an area is a direct correlation to violent crime, and the correlation is about 0.7 to 0.8, which in boring as fuck sciencey terms means around 50 to 65% of violent crime is caused by inequality. Now, that's a lot, by the way, because reasons for something happening are so varied. Once half of the cause of something is determined, it's just accepted as the reason something itself happens. This is why you always hear in politics that inequality causes crime, and not the other way around. The problem with this debate in social science, and I do have to get slightly political here, is that left-leaning types always use this calculation incorrectly, and that's why you see this pop up on Reddit all the time. And to be fair, the right-leaning types oftentimes just pretend it doesn't exist in the first place. But to start, Ginis are always the relative inequality over an area. So it's not just inequality causes crime, it's specifically stacking all of the poor people into an area where there's a bunch of rich people causes resentment, and that causes crime. Thank President Johnson's Great Society for this one. This is why in areas of the world where everyone is relatively poor, the crime rate is effectively zero, like Hazard County, Kentucky, or the entire state of North Dakota. If you want a real-life example of actually a left-leaning type trying to fix this, look up the Obama administration's attempts to move Section 8 housing into the suburbs. It was ruled unconstitutional, but the fact they even attempted it meant someone in that administration knew fixing income inequality was hard, and it was easier to just disperse income inequality over a greater area and lowering the Gini coefficient that way. So if these wealth gaps exist everywhere, and we know they get created naturally in every society on Earth at equal rates, why don't we create policies to affect them? Well, we do. Very generally, the left deals with them through redistribution schemes, while the right deals with them by affecting other Gini coefficients other than income inequality. Gini coefficients work for all inequality types, not just the easily calculatable income inequality. This is why Rudy Giuliani's broken windows policing worked for New York City in the 1990s. He identified safety inequality or trust inequality, whatever you want to call it, in policing was a major source of violence and resentment and corrected it. It's why even though all crime dropped in the 1990s, worldwide, New York outpaced the drop to such a significant extent, the city went from one of the most dangerous large cities on Earth to literally the safest. Inequality also manifests differently based on population, so somewhere where inequality is relatively high, like in Appalachia, there's very rich people from the coal boom in the 70s, and then the people who worked in the coal mines that are no longer there. That population, though, it's very dispersed nonetheless. There's not a whole lot of population density. So instead of violent crime, you see things like drug addiction. The point is, these are very complex things. It's not just as simple as, well, income inequality causes crime. It's any type of inequality over a given area, and you have to identify which one is the most important, or multiple ways to affect it. So what do we do with our own wealth inequality in Project Diablo 2? It doesn't cause violent crime, obviously, but it will cause other effects like just not playing. And this is where I start to lose my mind, because Reddit especially loves left-leaning ideas on how to solve this problem. And those solutions do and can work in the real world. They cannot and will not work in video game fantasy land. We can't just create a rune distribution scheme where we all go to Charcy every week for our Gull freebie. We can't just place a tax on the declone farmers and demand their rune wealth get 25% shaved off the top. When you have a small population that is inherently going to have a more laissez-faire economic scheme because it's a fucking video game, you need to look at other solutions than just saying, well, let's change how wealth is accumulated. That will do nothing. It has always done nothing. Wealth accumulation in the hands of a few is a natural law, and that's why we have politics in a fairly vain attempt to limit it. Let me give you one example. This is just one example on how to fix inequality without harping on the income aspect of it. Say there's an overpriced item on the trade site for 6 high runes. Its real worth is about 3 high runes, and we know that because 2 of the exact same items sold for 3 high runes this week. Now, no one who has, say, 10 high runes of wealth stacked up will buy the 6 high rune item, unless maybe it's the last piece of gear they need. But someone who needs that item and has 1,000 high runes will go ahead and buy it, because even if it's overpriced, they can just afford it. So then the posts go up about income inequality causing trading issues, like there's a way to solve that guy having 1,000 high runes. Instead, look at another type of inequality at work here: frustration with the trade site. A rich player has less frustration than a poor player, which is a form of inequality. We could more easily fix this, say, by having a trade site that shows offers on an item. So when 5 people offer 3 high runes for that 6 high rune item, the person overpricing it lowers the item or takes the 3 high runes. This won't always happen, say, mid-season when it's all dead, because a savvy trader might be pricing that item specifically for that 1,000 high rune guy. You see this with Stone Crushers, by the way. This wouldn't work with Stone Crushers. But it would affect it some of the time, which is more effect than just saying we can limit the 1,000 high rune guy from getting that rich in the first place, which you cannot do, not in video game land. I'm sorry, guys. Changing the declone farming stuff is not going to affect people getting rich. It just won't. You know, there's a million different ways you can look at adjusting other types of game inequality. That's just one example. The point is, you can just do the lazy thing people do in political science by attaching onto the one verifiable piece of inequality like income, because we can't affect the income in this game with taxes and redistributions like we do in real life. The point is, you can't just do the lazy thing people do in political science by attaching onto the one verifiable piece of inequality like income. We can't affect the income in this game with taxes and redistributions like we do in real life. You know, there's no too long didn't read here. Read it or don't. I'm not responding to comments here because I know the stream of bullshit Reddit will put out over this, even when someone can't be bothered to take the 5 minutes to read or just listen to the whole thing. Just try to be one of the people who looks a little beyond the easy resentment-based arguments about wealth. God, I'm frustrated. See you guys later. Next season, maybe. I think this is it. Oh.